Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. Mark and Diesel apparently matching again today. What is good, Upstate? How are each and every one of you guys doing today? It is awesome to be here with you. Of course, here's how you can get in touch with the show. You can hit us up, hopefully not literally, on the Renewal by Anderson fan phone. That's 844-326-3663. And on the text line 71307. Just start your text with the word fan, and away you go on the show. Coming up on the show today, face of or face off? We'll explain. Must-win games for Clemson and South Carolina 2024. There have been 8 hires in the NFL. Which of the hires gets the highest and lowest marks? We've got Jake Crane joining you at 420. We've got either or. We've got the top 5 at 5. We've got Mark and Diesel's top 5, which today is our top 5 favorite athletes of all time. What are yours? And we have you here on the most interactive sports radio show anywhere. Fantastic to be here. Love you guys tremendously. Could not do it without you. Tomorrow, guys, just a little heads up, I will be off tomorrow. We've got an Ingalls cooking show, and so we will be across the state line in North Carolina, but you will be in good hands here on Offsides. Guys, I wanted to open today with this. To me, there is a make or break game on the schedule for both Clemson and South Carolina this coming season. Okay, there's a make or break game. In other words, you don't win this game and you are not going to achieve what your fan base wants to achieve. And as a reminder, we last week gave you our A through F grades for Clemson and South Carolina based on what they achieve next season. So you don't need to grade the season after the fact. We're grading the season now for you. Okay? Very, very simple, very easy to understand. Even the most biased of Clemson and South Carolina fans have said Diesel and I have done a knockdown, drag-out job of this. So here you go. What would be an A season for Clemson? Making it to the Final Four. What would be a B season for Clemson? Winning the ACC, making it to the college football playoff, but not winning a game in the playoff. What would be a C season for Clemson? Not winning the ACC, getting a playoff bid, but not winning a playoff game. What would be a D season for Clemson? Not winning the ACC, not getting a playoff bid, but finishing in the top 25. What would be an F season for Clemson? You can figure it out now, right? No ACC championship, no college football playoff berth, no top 25 finish. A, B, C, D, F. Clemson the last 3 seasons has had an average finish of number 16. As you guys well know, a lot of people try to figure out how to go from good to great. Clemson's gone from great to good. Guys, I know that might sting, but it's just reality. It's the reality of the situation. So what, pray tell, is the must-win game for Clemson this year? You fire up the 2024 Clemson schedule. Really, really easy to kind of decipher and go through. You fire it up. Georgia's not a must-win game. It's the first game of the year. You are a heavy underdog in that game. The level of underdog shows you specifically just how far you've fallen, right? Because Georgia's maintained that level. Clemson has not. But it's still a winnable game for Clemson. First game of the year, first game jitters. You don't know what Georgia you're going to get, right? Very much a winnable game, I think. Then you got 2 home games against solid opponents, 3 home games, solid opponents, but Clemson will be favored by double digits in all 3. Appalachian State, NC State, and Stanford. All right? Elsewhere on the schedule, you have at Wake Forest, Virginia, You have Louisville. You have at Virginia Tech, Pitt, the Citadel, and South Carolina. But for me, my friends, the must-win game for Clemson on this schedule happens October 5th at Florida State. Understanding that you are likely opening the season with a loss, okay? Don't worry. 132 other schools would be opening the season with a loss, playing Georgia at the Mercedes-Benz Dome in Atlanta, right? They'd be opening with a loss too. That's not going to be your death nail. But this would be October 5th at Florida State. No Jordan Travis, no Keon Coleman. You've got to find a way to win that game. No Trey Benson. You've got to win. No Jared Verse. You've got to win that game. Okay? It's on the road. It's hostile environment. It's a new regime for Florida State in terms of the leadership of that team. You lose that game. You've started the season 3-2. Then the Tylers in Spartanburg are really letting you have it. They are really letting you have it. Because at that point, you essentially face having to run the table just to get a bye to the playoff. And at that point, this season feels every bit like the other three. Are you guys in agreement with me here? The must-win game for Clemson on their schedule, 2024, happens October 5th at Florida State. The crappy part about that is that, if there's a loss in that game, the season's been roughly going on for a month, 5 weeks. You've already got 2 L's, and it just feels like the program hasn't taken a step up, in my opinion, in any way, shape, or form.
Plus, you can't take an L to DJ Uiagalelei.
Yes.
You cannot, under any circumstance, let that happen. The guy that left because the guy you got ran him out of town. You can't let that guy beat you.
Can't do it. Can't do it at all. I think that's the must win. What is your must win for Clemson 2024? Hit us on the text line at 71307 and just start your text with the word fan, and away you go on the show. Let us know. I want to know what you're thinking. Tell me what's on your mind. Let me know. I mean, that to me, wow. Certainly, you can't lose to App State, NC State, Stanford, but you have the home crowd urging you on in that game. At Florida State, October 5th, very likely top 25 team when that game is played. That's the must win.
You can't lose to Georgia Southern because they're not App State.
Damn straight they're not App State. And don't you forget it. Don't you forget it. All right.
Tony Kornheiser, that is the drop that just keeps on giving.
It is.
I thank you so much for that, Tony Kornheiser.
What about the lovely Gamecocks? Must-win game for South Carolina. What is it? It's it. What is it? The must-win game, you look at this Gamecock schedule, and, there's cupcakes that are kind of spread out throughout the schedule, mixed with very, very tough opponents. You got LSU in week 3. You got Ole Miss in week 5. You have Alabama in week 6, Oklahoma in week 7. Then the schedule ends, with a bunch of winnable games. Missouri at home, Vanderbilt, Wofford, rivalry game with Clemson. But Vanderbilt, Missouri, Wofford, you get Missouri at home. Missouri at home darn well should be in year 4 for Shane Beamer a winnable game, right? It should be a winnable game. Incidentally, we asked Chris Phillips yesterday, Diesel, what Shane Beamer's approval rating would be right now. What would Shane Beamer's approval rating be right now among Gamecock fans? And he said 70-30, 70% approval rating. I said there's never been a president that has had that approval rating. And he said, well, I don't think being a football coach is as divisive as being as being the president. And I said, at South Carolina, it is.
Yeah.
But for the Gamecocks, it is. Have you seen how divisive their fan base has been with us? Not all the fan base, but 10% of the fan base. Have you seen how divisive 10% of the fan base has been with us? 70% approval rating for Shane Beamer. Let me throw this out there to you guys, okay? Is the actual number higher or lower than that? Chris Phillips set the over-under, okay? 70%. 70% approval rating. Your gut feeling, whether you're a Clemson fan or a South Carolina fan, is the actual fan base approval rating. So if each Gamecock fan voted, do you support Shane Beamer? Are you supportive of what he's done so far? That gets a yes vote. If you don't think he's the guy, that gets a no vote. What would you say the approval rating would be? What percent would say yay to the job he's done thus far? You know, what's crazy, Diesel, you ever have those tweets, Diesel, that you don't expect? Like, okay, this might get liked by a few people here and there, but it's probably not going to be an overly big deal. I had one of those tweets yesterday, but it ended up blowing up. 45,000 people later have seen it, had roughly the average attendance of a group of 5 football game. Pretty solid.
Or a South Carolina game when the temperature drops below 55 degrees.
Also good call. So the tweet yesterday said, give me Lamont Paris's leadership all day over someone who breaks his foot on Gatorade coolers. And I realized, Diesel, why that tweet went nuts. It went nuts because both fan bases were liking it. Clemson fan base was saying, yeah, Lamont Paris is good, and that knock on Beamer is funny. Gamecock fans were liking it because they were saying, yeah, like we kind of agree with that too. Like what is he saying? Does he offer us insults? We're offering a lot of insults. So Gamecock fans were retweeting it saying, yeah, Mark Ryan, like it's rare that I agree with you, but I agree with you here. Is the actual approval rating for Shane Beamer above or below 70%? That's the over-under. You got to hit us with the above or below.
There is no way that Coach Moonboots has above a 70% approval rating.
You don't think so?
No way.
You don't think so?
No way. Like, he's embarrassing. He should be embarrassing a lot more South Carolina fans than he is, which is something that blows my mind. You can have, hey, it's we follow people on social media. We follow people in politics who do embarrassing, stupid things all the time. Why should I be surprised?
So what do you think his approval rating is, Diesel?
55%.
Okay. Here's what I'll say. I think publicly, Diesel, his approval rating is 90%. I think privately it's 50%. These people do not want to publicly speak out against their coach, who has already very volatilely come at certain members of the media. If you happen to know of any of them, please let me know. But he's, I think publicly Gamecock fans want to show support. I think privately, I pick up that it's only about 50-50.
God willing, somebody will be able to get him to do it again.
So Diesel, maybe it'll be you this year.
I don't know.
It'll be you.
I don't know.
We'll see. But what did I just do? If you average the 90% who would support him publicly with the 50% who support him privately, what you arrive at is exactly the number of 70-30 that Chris Phillips gave us. That's exactly what you hone in on, what you end up on. What do you guys say? 71307 is where you can get to us on the show. You can start your text with the word fan, and away you go. Texter says, I love it when you sing to us. Must win against DJU and anyone who utilized the portal more than Clemson. Absolutely. Texter says, with the talent left, Florida State will have a roster similar to the one that got smacked by Georgia in the bowl game. Must win, Texter. Must win. Texter says, I think beating Georgia first thing would be a huge statement for the season. It will, Texter. It will. And, guys, like when I went to the game a couple of years ago, this coming fall, it'll be 3 years since Clemson played Georgia in Charlotte. I actually went to that game expecting Clemson to win. I'm no longer there. It's just been too many years of good, not great from Clemson. Too many years of the bar lowering again. So I welcome you telling me that you've proven me wrong. I'll certainly be rooting for Clemson to win that game. Not only because we root for the teams we cover to fare well, but also because I hate Georgia. Hate Georgia. One of my beefs with the upstate is that Georgia is the third most popular team here. Furman's gaining ground. Furman's really closing the gap. But each time we run that poll, who's the third most popular team here, It's become a close vote, but Georgia wins. I hate that Georgia's the third most popular team here. Okay? Please. We're out of Georgia's zone. Texter says the must-win for the Gamecocks 2024 season is getting Beamer to quit being a 5-year-old in the pressers. Folks, that came in from a South Carolina Gamecock fan. Okay? That's from a Gamecock fan. Open your eyes. Don't criticize. Realize we must try to see eye to eye. Spur Daddy said, Beamer's approval rating for me is about 50%. Diesel, that makes no sense. Beamer's approval rating for him is 50%. Isn't that like saying 60% of the time the cologne works every time? Sex Panther cologne?
I like about half of what he does.
Yeah.
Which is the biggest fence riding text I've seen all day.
It is. Who are you, Switzerland, Spur Daddy? I just gave you a compliment, Spur Daddy, so it's okay if I follow that up with a diss, right? Spur Daddy, what we're looking for is your guess of the Gamecock fan base's Beamer approval rating. If you polled everybody, do you approve or disapprove the job that he's doing? Is he the guy or is he not the guy? Let's see here. Texter says, Mark Ryan, I think slightly lower than 70-30, but if this season doesn't show tremendous improvement and a few wins, you shouldn't get it. It will drop drastically. Texter says, speaking of Georgia, did you see ETN basically confirmed exactly what you said as to why he left? He said he could play on a losing team and start, or to be a backup and possibly win a national championship. Well, that's a hell of a lot of motivation for Florida to be a winning team this year. Okay? Hell of a lot of motivation for Florida to beat Georgia this year. Let's make it happen.
You know what backup running backs do for a living? They work at Budget Rental Car. What do you want to do for your life?
They do.
Travis.
They do.
You want to be a backup? You want to put, some money in your pocket? Go work a Joe job after you're done? That's fine. You can go somewhere else and be a star.
My friends, up next, the must-win game on South Carolina's sked. My name is Mark Ryan. He is Diesel. And this is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Tremendous to have you guys with us here on a Super Tuesday episode of the show. We love you guys. We mean it. We could not do it without you. It is fantastic to have you guys with us today. So we shared with you in the opening segment that in our opinion, Clemson's must-win game 2024, must win, gotta have it, is Florida State, October 5th. The irony is, I don't see, for the first time in a long time, if I said to you, what are the gimme games on Clemson's schedule? What are the gimme games here? I see one, the Citadel. And the Citadel isn't a gimme game for South Carolina. Is that too soon, Gamecock fans? Too soon? That's the one gimme game. Clemson, is there a second gimme game on the schedule? Stanford isn't a great Power 5, but they're still a Power 5. Appalachian State's one of the better Group of 5 teams, and it must be Producer Appreciation Day for me to say that. NC State beats Clemson every other year, roughly. There, after Georgia, there is no gimme game at Wake Forest, Virginia, Louisville, at Virginia Tech, at Pitt, South Carolina. I don't see a gimme game anywhere. But the Citadel, and for the South Carolina standpoint, how inspirational do you think what Lamont Paris is doing to Shane Beamer? Where is South Carolina predicted to finish in the SEC? I think when we did our power poll last week, we had them 13th out of 16 teams. Maybe they were 12th out of 16 teams in the SEC this year. Great. Look what Lamont Paris did. Highlighted the fact that nobody finishes where they are picked to finish. South Carolina has a chance to become the first place team in the SEC. They have a chance to win the SEC this year. You don't think Beamer's going to use that to his squad's motivation? You don't think Lamont Paris can help him use that to motivate his squad this year? The hell do guys like MARC RYAN know? Those media boys picked South Carolina basketball to finish last. Now they could finish first. If I'm Shane Beamer, I am blowing that up. I am building that up as much as I possibly can, because I know that my team is hearing all that. I know my team is thinking no one's really expecting much of us this year. But on the South Carolina side, guys, A through F grades for their season. What would be an A? What would be a B? What would be a C? What would be a D? What would be an F? An A to me would be 9 wins, including the bowl game. Okay, 9 wins. You go 8-4 in the regular season, you win the bowl game, or you go 9-3 in the regular season, you lose a bowl game. 9 wins would be an A. 8 wins would be a B. 7 wins would be a C. 6 wins would be a D. And 5 wins would be an F. 5 wins would be an F because you are gift wrapped 4 of them. Old Dominion, please. Diesel, if you said to me, Mark, what would be the FBS school you would least like to play for? It would be Old Dominion. There's nothing about that brand, that school, that screams cool to me. It's like it's in the name. It's old. It's tired. They're the stinking Monarchs.
Old Dominion had been a pretty decent basketball program for a little while, and they had a pretty okay football program for a little while. They remember a couple of years ago they won like 10 games a few years in a row in a bad Conference USA, but regardless, they won 10 games in a row. They were packing the place out. They were tearing down the sidelines to rebuild the stadium from scratch because they needed to, because they were selling out games. So they had some buzz behind them. But you ask an average fan, they're not going to have a clue where Old Dominion is. Like, where is Old Dominion? I don't know. Is Maryland?
What's your guess?
It's Virginia. It's
in
in Norfolk,
Virginia,
Virginia. I know that, but
okay.
They're in our conference. I mean, I can't really talk trash because they beat App State last year.
You ever been in Norfolk?
I have never been in Norfolk. No, I've been to Richmond. I've been to Roanoke. I haven't spent a ton of time in Virginia.
Our buddy, Jeff Pantridge, used to work there.
Yeah.
And it's like similar in market size to where we are, in Greenville.
Sure.
I think they're like 43 or something, and we're 57. But they've got all these towns kind of like the upstate. And he told me that the issue there is that there's like 4 regions of that area, and none of the 4 regions want to work together on anything.
I would guess that Norfolk is a big town, a big hub with a lot of smaller towns around it. The upstate are 3 pretty decent sized cities, Greenville being the biggest of the 3, but Spartanburg isn't that much smaller than Greenville, and then Anderson isn't that much smaller than Spartanburg. So the upstate is a region. There is, the greater Greenville market doesn't include all of that. It's a weird. Greenville, the upstate as a radio market, is a really odd market.
It is. It's one of the few that gives you credit for like the entire area, whereas the vast majority of other markets, Diesel, are rated only on the size of Greenville, and then Spartanburg is rated separately. And then if you did that to this market, Greenville would be, I don't know, 80 or 90.
Yeah.
Spartanburg would be 120, but you get credit for all of them because we are the upstate and we rock it out like that, man. Heck yeah, we do. Let's see here. Spur Daddy says, I'm leaning more on the side of Beamer's time coming to an end. It's coming to an end because of his attitude, he says. He cannot be a good SEC coach acting like that. Real SEC coaches act like they belong there.
You can only act like that when you're winning. When you're Steve Spurrier and you're winning a whole lot of games, you can talk trash. You can, show your ass a little bit here and there. But you can't do it when you're not winning. And let's be real. The schedule is not getting any easier. Wins are not coming any easier in the conference schedule. You can steal a game or two every now and again. And they've shown that they can do that. They beat Tennessee. They beat Clemson in back-to-back weeks. They've beaten Georgia a couple of years ago. But SEC wins are not going to be any easier. Georgia is tough. Tennessee is tough. Kentucky has passed you by. So unless you figure out a way to slingshot past all of those teams and past all of those programs, you're looking to beat up on a week out of conference schedule and maybe steal 2 or 3 games on the conference slate. And that's not going to get anybody to keep their job. That's not going to keep Shane's job for him. Beating up on Akron, beating up on Old Dominion, beating up on Wofford is not going to keep Shane Beamer's job. It's just not, because you're still going to get stomped by the Alabamas, the LSUs, the Oklahomas of the world, the Ole Misses of the world. You're going to get stomped by them.
Well, we don't know that, Diesel. You don't know that. I mean, they could be the version of South Carolina men's basketball. They could be a lot better than what people think. Lenora Sellers losing Spencer Rattler could be like losing Gigi Jackson. Addition by subtraction. You just don't know, right? But I will say, guys, it is very possible that South Carolina could finish 6-6, Florida could finish 4-8, and everybody knows that Florida's a much better team than South Carolina because of that schedule, because there is no Old Dominion, Akron, Vanderbilt, Wofford on the schedule for the Gators. That could be the case. You could say, well, South Carolina's a better team. They're 6-6 and nobody buys it. Nobody buys it. So anyway, Diesel, I am struggling with this. Can you pull up South Carolina's schedule? He's got it up when you get a chance. I'm struggling with this, Diesel, because I see not 1, not 2, but 3 candidates for the must-win game. All right? I see at Kentucky on September 7th because South Carolina's gotten the better of Kentucky a couple years consecutively. And Kentucky is right around at the level of where South Carolina's been. Mm-hmm. You have LSU after that game, right? So you don't win that one. You begin 1-2. The second candidate for me, Diesel, is Ole Miss, who comes your way in week 5. They've got Akron in there. So let's say you get wins over Old Dominion and Kentucky. You're feeling great. You start 2-0. You lose to LSU. You're 2-1. You beat Akron. You're 3-1. You got Ole Miss sitting right there with road games at Alabama and at Oklahoma forthcoming. You don't beat Ole Miss. You get the sense that the wheels could come off after that. And then my third candidate, Diesel, is again, I don't know what it is with A&M. I don't know why they have South Carolina's number. A&M has not been good. They've got all this talent. They've stockpiled all of this blue chip talent. And for whatever reason, they never put it all together. But for reasons I can't explain, you see that talent edge when they go up against South Carolina. So I'm asking myself, ladies and gentlemen, with Vanderbilt, Missouri, Wofford, and Clemson following Alabama and Oklahoma, Diesel, that's my answer. You get them at home. You get them at home because, Diesel, if you don't win that game, how many losses are we looking at for South Carolina with a month still to play in the season? By my count, you don't beat Texas A&M at home, you have 3, 4, 5, 6 losses with 4 games to go. You're 2-6, perhaps 3-5 with 4 games to go. And it's no matter what you do the rest of the way, it's a lost season. That's the game you must have, Diesel. And, Diesel, you get a bye week before it. Before that game, you have Ole Miss at home, at Alabama, at Oklahoma. You get a bye week. You get Texas A&M. It's your homecoming. That's got to be the must-win for me.
Well, I'm going to go the opposite way and say the must-wins are the Old Dominion, Akron, Wofford games. You have to win those games. Okay. You absolutely have to win those football games because those are the only easy wins on the schedule. If you drop one of those, and we know how tough the rest of the schedule is going to be, if you drop one of those, heads are going to roll. Shane Beamer has worn out his Rolodex. We got one right here in the studio. We got an old-fashioned Rolodex right there. He has worn his Rolodex out calling up new assistants this year, this past offseason, and the offseason before that. So if you struggle, if you look bad, if you need a late game field goal to beat any one of those teams that you should beat handily, oh boy, things are going to get real nasty in Columbia. Like you have to win those football games. Fans, one thing I've learned about Gamecock fans is they will excuse SEC losses under basically any circumstance. They'll say, "Well, look, Texas A&M's got more talent than us. They've got the recruiting rankings over us. Alabama's got more talent than us. Oklahoma's got more talent than us. Ole Miss has got more talent than us." But the teams that you clearly on paper out talent, you have to beat because you can't make excuses for those losses.
Beamer's done a good job of beating those teams. Will Muschamp did a piss-poor job of beating those teams. We will see if that trend continues. You know, Diesel's absolutely right. You can't lose to one of those and achieve anything that you want to achieve. Maybe I shouldn't assume that South Carolina is going to win those gimme games, but I am. I'm looking at A&M at home, Ole Miss at home, on the road to Kentucky. You know you're going to have to get one that you're not supposed to win eventually. So which one of those is the most important? I think a loss to A&M means that you're sitting there at 2-6 or 3-5 with 4 games to go and a fan base that is checked out, starting to put together lists of who they'd rather have as their head coach, right? We check on the text line. Texter says, I'd say public approval for Beamer is publicly 75%, privately 55%. Texter says, winning in the SEC is so hard. 8-win seasons will be hard to come by. SEC fans better expect to be disappointed if you're expecting any team besides Georgia and LSU to win more than 8 games. Just too many quality teams.
Speaking of that number 8 games, the poll that we put up yesterday says we've been told that this is a football state. So Gamecock fans, would you rather have an annual 8-win football program, which the texter says is extremely hard to achieve? You win 8 games a year in the SEC, you're in the top third, easily in the top half, obviously, but in the top third, and you're getting that national respect of, man, it's tough to win in this league. They're doing a real good job. Or the other option was an Elite 8 basketball team annually.
Can I guess?
Yeah.
I think a majority of Gamecock fans voted in this poll, Diesel. And I think they voted for the embarrassing answer. I think they voted for 8 wins in football, which you should not do. 8 wins in football is not an accomplishment. Read my lips. That is not an accomplishment. An Elite 8 is an accomplishment.
Yeah. A lot of them did. A lot of Gamecock fans did. And this is the mark of a good poll because this ended basically 50-50. 48.5% said 8 wins in football. 51.5% said Elite Eight in basketball.
Those 51.5%, you have pride. And that's a good thing. You know that 8 wins in football is a C. You know, this texter does have a point, Diesel, when he says 8 wins with what the SEC is going to be, Oklahoma and Texas, not to mention the additions 10 plus years ago of Missouri and Texas A&M, is going to be brutal. But you know what the SEC is doing now is, again, the expanded playoff is making this thing like March Madness. And it's going to get to a point, if they keep expanding it, where we don't pay attention to college football until the postseason, which would be a bloody shame. And then this part of this, when the SEC and the Big Ten are negotiating, we want 4 automatic bids. You know what they're saying, Diesel, is we want this to be the NFL. We want this to be the NFL playoffs, where you can be 8-4 and still make the playoff. That is never what college football was designed to be. You know, that would be the end of the regular season being a playoff. If you've got, hey, man, our league is so tough. NFL gets 10-6 teams, 11-6 teams in the playoffs. Why can't we get an 8-4 team in the playoffs? Yeah. That would be the end of what makes college football unique and special.
And what that would do is it would push the onus of who is pushing for playoff expansion away from the Big Ten and the SEC. Let's say they both get their 4 teams. So that's 8 right there, 8 out of 14 right there. Now you've got the Big 12 and the ACC now pushing and pleading and begging and borrowing and stealing so that they can increase the number of their automatic tie-ins. But they'll never get because the Big Ten and the SEC would never agree to give them the same number of tie-ins that they get. And doing that, man, that would just be, if the ACC, if the Big 12, if all the other G5 conferences ratify that, that would be like them just laying down on their backs, rolling over and showing their bellies. Like, come on, Big Ten, come on, SEC, scratch our bellies. We'll capitulate. We'll give you what you want, just as long as you throw some more money our way. And that would be just a pathetic state of affairs for college football.
It's unbelievable to me that corruption, public corruption that is publicly known, is becoming okay. Not just in sports, but in all walks of life. What happened to Florida State was corruption. That's corruption. In the entire history of college football, what they did gets you into the playoff, gets you into the final game. Okay? It doesn't matter what your opinion was, because the black and white, the objective, what they achieved, got them in. Okay? And if you're telling us, okay, well, now, no matter what, we get 4 teams in because we're big bad and we're the bully in of the land, then you know what? You are admitting that corruption is okay.
You said it yesterday that Southern Cal lost their quarterback and ended up blowing out a Louisville team that they were dogs to in that bowl game. What's to say that if Florida State is put into that 14 playoff, they don't have this mass exodus, which includes the rising starting quarterback at Florida State, just up and leaves? That didn't make any sense to me. What's to say Tate Rodemaker couldn't have led that team with all the other pieces in place to achieving essentially what Southern Cal did in their bowl game against Louisville?
What's to say? I mean, why couldn't it happen? Why couldn't it happen now? And that's 100% right. And that's why college football can't go down that road. Absolutely cannot go down that road. Cannot allow that to happen. All right, my friends, coming your way next. Is this meaningless? It's Offsides, Mark Ryan and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides, Mark Ryan and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Awesome to have you guys with us. Truly do appreciate you. Appreciate you so very, very much. We really, really do. I will tell you guys something. This to me is fascinating. It is fascinating. when you consider what's going on right now, college basketball coming down to the wire, okay? Both Clemson and South Carolina are going to be in. You don't want to be the 8 seed or the 9 seed because then you know you got to play the 1 seed in the second round. I don't, Diesel, I've always thought there's a flaw in the bracket. I've always thought there's a flaw because why is it that the 11 seed has a much better path than the 8 seed, right? The 8 seed is gone in the second round. The 8 seed gets the 1 seed in the second round every time but 2 times in NCAA history.
Yeah.
Whereas the 11 seed gets to play a 6. 11-6 is very winnable. And then they get to play a 3. And then if they win that, they get to play a 2, right? So it's just like, to me, the numbers of the bracket have always presented a problem.
So you would want to see things reseeded round by round to fix that problem?
I haven't even thought that far into it, Diesel. I just thought to myself that I just had this realization that, you know what, I think that's not equitable. That the 8 seed has to play a 1 seed in the second round. You could do something like a reseed, but it's like, doesn't it? I mean, an 11 seed plays a 6, plays a 3, plays a 2. An 8 seed plays a 9 and then a 1.
It's a gauntlet.
I mean,
it is a gauntlet.
It's game over. You're not getting through that. And I say that to say that, unfortunately, the school for many of you and my school are trending toward that 8 and 9 seed no man's land. Clemson and Florida. Florida gets Alabama tonight at home. Florida's favored by 1.5. Gators lost to Alabama in overtime on the road a couple weeks ago. Like the Gators are still in one top 25 poll. They're just out of the other. They're losing too many close games. You got to show the capacity to win some of these close games. You got to get it done, right? But, we're looking at this, guys. And, I was wondering about this. Diesel hit me with this before the show. And, he asked me the question, Mark, do you think conference tournaments for NCAA basketball are meaningless games? You know how bowl games have been called meaningless games? Are they, in fact, meaningless? Diesel, to me, I look at this, right? And I said about the NBA All-Star game, they should make home court advantage in the NBA Finals on the line to the winner of the All-Star game. And that's how you'd get people to try. And a bunch of people said that's ludicrous. The Major League Baseball did that, and you saw how that worked. How did it work? It made me watch the All-Star game. I didn't watch, it made them try in the All-Star game. They didn't try, and I don't watch it outside of that. But Diesel, on the absurdity scale, why is home court advantage for the NBA All-Star game viewed as absurd? But yet it's not absurd to award your one bid to a tournament where you're asking teams to do something they haven't done all year. You're asking them to play 3 games in 3 days or 4 games in 4 days, or in some cases, 5 games in 5 days. Hey, man, you know what's going to determine the best team in our league? This. What a bunch of hooey.
My team won the Sun Belt tournament a few years ago. We were not the best team in the league, not even close. We went on a run. We made it into the NCAA tournament. I thought this was bogus. As a team who won our conference tournament, they put us into a play-in game, and we lost that game. So, there's always that debate. Did we actually make the field of 64? No. We were in the play-in game. But App State was not the best team in the Sun Belt that year. I believe it was Georgia State, if memory serves. But the same thing could happen this year. App State's been the best team all season long in the conference by virtue of winning the conference outright. But a stumble after taking some time off. Now, here's the thing. Sun Belt play ended last Friday and Saturday for teams. So then there's a week plus off before you start playing your conference championship, before you start playing your conference tournament. Does it behoove the team that's actually playing in the first round because they get to shake off a little bit of that rust? Does it hurt the teams that have to sit and get that bye by building up more rust? The conference tournaments, by virtue of the way the NCAA tournament has gone, which is throwing so many at-large bids at middle-of-the-pack Power 5 leagues, it's rendered, for the most part, these conference tournaments pointless. if South Carolina gets blown out and loses a game in the first round, they're still getting into the NCAA tournament. Tennessee, Kentucky, Auburn, Alabama, they're all guaranteed to be in as it stands already. We already know those teams are getting into the NCAA tournament. So any one of those teams craps the bed and drops a game in the first round, doesn't matter. The only thing it matters, the only teams it matters to are the teams who are coming from the 12, 13, 14, 15 seeds in the SEC, 16 starting next year. If those teams go on a magical run, it matters to them. But to everybody else in that conference, or most everybody else, you're already in the NCAA tournament. Win or lose, doesn't matter. Why play the games? Why risk the injuries? And I know people are starting to think, well, isn't that what we're doing to college football? We keep adding more and more and more, and it takes away the meaning. Well, yeah, the NCAA tournament is a prime example of guaranteeing too many spots and then rendering games useless.
Diesel, the worst argument that I hear from people, and I can't believe, otherwise smart people say this, what's wrong with more football? Guys, supply and demand, less is more. You ruin the meaning of it when you have too much of it. You ruin the meaning. It's called the law of diminishing returns. You are having college football hit the point now of the law of diminishing returns. And that is so damn sad because the scarcity of it increased the demand, increased our passion level. Now you're saturating us with it, and you're trying to make it the NFL, and that sucks.
Well, I see it right now with all these. There's reports all over the news every single day that people are leaving streaming services in droves because it's gotten too expensive and there are just far too many options. People are saying, maybe I'll just cut these off. And I literally saw the woman on the news yesterday say, well, I'll just cancel my subscription to Disney, Hulu, ESPN, and just go outside more because we've oversaturated the TV viewing experience with so much content on streaming that most of it doesn't hold any value anymore. You say, I could lose one of these services. It's not really going to affect me that much. And then I'll go outside and do something else.
All right, guys, coming up next on the show, there have been 8 new hires in the National Football League. I'll grade them for you next here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. What's good, my friend? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. today. Thrilled to have you with us. A jam-packed hour of the most interactive sports talk show anywhere coming your way right here on the Fan Upstate. Here's how you can take part. You can hit us on the Renewal by Anderson fan phone, 844-326-3663. And the text line is there for you at 71307. Just start your text with the word fan, and away you go on the show. Texter says, Mark, I'm a big Florida fan tonight with you. War Eagle beat Alabama. Man, thank you, brother. Florida needs this. Florida needs this bad. It's like Florida's one of those teams where they're 20-9. You're like, okay, you got 20 regular season wins. Good job. But the 9 losses, so many of these were winnable games. You get the sense it's like we're better than this record. Like we could be 23-6 right now. I mean, like, easily 3 more wins. So it's about time Florida turn the corner and start winning, start getting dubs in some of these contests. We'll see if that can happen tonight. Texter says, Mark, the new SEC conference with Oklahoma and Texas will mean constant conference losses for most of the SEC. Just simple attrition. Get used to a lot of losses against a lot of top 25 teams. Mark, when you came on the air, you said you were thrilled to have us. Please, brother, please explain to us how truly thrilled you are to have us with you. Yeah, okay. I'll tell you exactly how thrilled I am to have you with me. Was always a dream of mine to come to a place with a new station and build an audience from the ground up. And so during our 5 years here, we have seen, we have seen the numbers just grow. When I first started here 5 years ago, guys, it would be like a good show engagement-wise if we received 10 text messages in the whole show. 10 text messages in the whole show. Now we routinely get shows with hundreds. So to be able to build this community with you guys of Offsiders is to see a dream realized. And so could not be more thrilled to have you guys with us every single day. It is an absolute dream. And when I say I love you guys, I mean it, because we get to host with our family here every single day. It's awesome. What do you say we do this? I would like to look at the different grades that I have given each of the teams in the National Football League. Now, most years, there are 7 new NFL head coaches, 7 new ones. That's a turnover rate of 22% of the league every year. If there was that turnover rate in your career, you'd be starting a new job, demanding you start a new job. And you're not sticking around with a 22% turnover rate. Then you have companies like ours here with very, very little turnover rate. Loyalty here is key and king, right? But this year, would you believe 25% of the league turned over? 25%. 1 out of 4 coaches in the NFL found themselves out of a gig. What do you say we grade them all, worst to first? Your thoughts welcome. How did each team do? Let's hit it with our music, and here we go. We've got number 8. Dan Quinn, the lowest rated hire according to yours truly. Washington Commanders. My grade is a D. Why? Well, they thought they were getting Ben Johnson, the starling offensive coordinator from the Detroit Lions. He left them kind of at the altar. At the last minute, decided he wasn't going to go, didn't like something he saw, said, I'm committed to Detroit and helping this team get over the hump. Love what we're building there. Don't want to leave right now. They thought, like everyone was saying, we'd be shocked if Ben Johnson, Detroit Lions OC, does not end up in Washington. Well, he didn't. Dan Quinn D. Why? Again, why? Well, I generally, guys, have an anti-retread policy, okay? Like if I had a job opening, I would not hire retreads. What is a retread? It's not just somebody who's, been around the block. It's not just that. It's like an old mentality. It's stale. It's not fresh. You guys hear us freshen up things on the show all the time. All the time. Retread is somebody not only who's been in and around the area for forever, okay, but also somebody with an older mentality and stale ideas, and that to me is Dan Quinn.
Doc Rivers.
Doc Rivers, right? Retread. Not interested. Not interested in retread. Dan Quinn D. Number 7 hire in the offseason. I will go Mike McDonald, Seattle Seahawks. I will give him a C-. Seattle tried to find the next Pete Carroll with this hire and hired somebody literally half Pete Carroll's age. Mike McDonald is 36, oversaw back-to-back top 5 finishes as a scoring defense as the Ravens DC. He is going to be the youngest head man in the NFL at the age of 36, but he does have 9 years of experience under John Harbaugh. How that will translate to an HC, a head coach, nobody knows. The grade for Mike Macdonald is a C-. The higher rank that I have ranked 6th out of 8 in the NFL's offseason belongs to Brian Callahan, Tennessee Titans. Guys, sometimes you wonder if a team regrets making a move that they made. You think Tennessee realizes they downgraded from Mike Vrabel to Brian Callahan? Brian Callahan is the son of longtime NFL head coach Bill Callahan, led the Raiders to the Super Bowl back in 2002. He's worked with Peyton Manning, Matthew Stafford, and Joe Burrow over the years, and was the Bengals offensive coordinator for 5 seasons, 2019 to 2023. Tennessee's Titans offense, which has, to stick with that word stale, been that the last few years, figures to get a facelift. But again, as a culture, did you upgrade or did you downgrade going from Mike Vrabel to Brian Callahan? I think you downgraded. Grade of C for the Tennessee Titans on the higher. Here's the higher ranked 5th out of 8 of all of them. Okay, and it belongs to Dave Canales, your new Carolina Panthers head coach. Dave appeared on this show a few weeks ago. Was great to meet him. Loved the enthusiasm that he brought. He had 13 years working under Pete Carroll as an assistant in Seattle before helping revive Baker Mayfield's career as the Buccaneers play caller. He is considered to be a quarterback whisperer, which is exactly what the Panthers want, Carolina needs for Bryce Young's growth under center. You don't like the experience level. There's almost none of that. You love the enthusiasm. There's a lot of that. When everything's kind of been a bleep storm surrounding the Carolina Panthers, a little optimism, a little positivity will go a long way. Dave Canales brings that optimism in droves. Grade C+ for the Carolina Panthers hire of Dave Canales, ranked 5th out of 8. Here is number 4 on the list. It is Antonio Pierce, Las Vegas Raiders. Now, this is something that traditionally hasn't worked in sports. You hire the assistant who everyone loves. I would not have hired Sharon Moore at Michigan to be the Michigan head coach. That would not have been the move that I made. Doesn't mean it's not guaranteed to work. I just wouldn't have made the move. Would have gone elsewhere. I thought Alabama had some major guts going for Kalen DeBoer. I think Michigan played it safe. I'm not a play it safe kind of guy. If you look at what I've done in my career, that's not playing it safe is not what I do. I put all the chips towards the center of the table, baby. So anyway, Mark Davis was bound to give Pierce a look. He finished 5-4 after the Josh McDaniels disaster. And Antonio Pierce has really won over the locker room with his player-friendly bravado. Experience is also a concern for him. He has just 6 years of combined experience in college and the NFL. So what is his big picture vision? We don't know, right? I think his future is tied just as much to the personnel moves that are made around him. Will the GM give him a shot? Antonio Pierce, grade B-, 3rd best coaching hire of the offseason. Give me Gerard Mayo. I've seen this hire heavily criticized. I don't fully understand why. By the way, Antonio Pierce's grade, if I didn't say so already, is a B-. I love the hire of Gerard Mayo. I really do. He's someone who has picked up through years of being by Bill Belichick's side as a player and now as a coach. Who better knows the Belichick defensive philosophy than Gerard Mayo? If you wanted a new culture, a new attitude, if you wanted to bring that forward to the new age, doesn't Gerard Mayo seem like a great fit? Now, look, if you look at Bill Belichick's coaching tree, their success, those guys, the understudies, has not been inspiring. But Gerard Mayo has a transparent approach. He's got an inviting personality, and he's had a direct hand in the Patriots defense year by year by ever-loving year. He's ready for this opportunity. Gerard Mayo, New England Patriots, third best hire of the offseason. The grade is a B. Second best hire of the offseason. Here we go. Yeah, here we go. Who does that signal call, guys? Yeah, here we go.
It's the old Dak Prescott who just got a haircut. Maybe that'll help him win some more games.
Did he? There you go.
Yeah, shaved his head.
Wow. 5, 4, 3. Here we go. Number 2, Raheem Morris, Atlanta Falcons. Look, Raheem, some might say, well, Mark, he's a retread. Really? He was 32 when he led the Buccaneers from 2009 to 2011. He's had roles on both sides of the ball, offense and defense. And he oversaw the Rams' Super Bowl winning defense in 2021. Successfully poached assistant coach Zach Robinson from Los Angeles to help on the offensive side of the ball. He is widely respected throughout the NFL, has had a whole host of people referring him. Arthur Blank, Atlanta, chose Raheem Morris over Bill Belichick because Bill Belichick could only say, here's what I've already done, and Raheem Morris could say, here's what I'm going to do. Let me suck you in with this enthusiasm. Raheem Morris, Atlanta Falcons, grade of B+. Best grade in the entirety of the offseason. Not a surprise, folks. Jim Harbaugh. I don't know if he's going to turn the Los Angeles Chargers around overnight. I think there's a culture of losing there that might take a little bit of time. But he's the guy that's going to get the most out of Justin Herbert. He's the guy that's going to make Justin Herbert a Pro Bowl quarterback. We've seen the college coaches fail. Urban Meyer, Matt Rule, Chip Kelly, Steve Spurrier, etc. But the difference is Jim Harbaugh has won everywhere he's coached. University of San Diego Toreros, Stanford, San Francisco 49ers, Michigan. He keeps ascending because he keeps winning, and perhaps no other coach gets his team to embody more of his personality than Jim Harbaugh. Los Angeles Chargers get the 1A grade for the offseason with the hire of Jim Harbaugh. Again, Raheem Morris, number 2, B+. Third best hire, Gerard Mayo, New England Patriots, B. Fourth best hire, Antonio Pierce, Las Vegas Raiders, B-. Fifth best, Dave Canales, Carolina Panthers, C+. Sixth out of 8, Brian Callahan, Tennessee Titans, C. Mike McDonald, Seattle Seahawks, C-. And bring up the rear, Dan Quinn. Does the score 28-3 ring something to you, Dan Quinn? Will you ever forget that, Dan Quinn? Grade of D for the Washington Commanders. Our NFL higher grades, all 8. Where did we hit? Where did we miss, my friends? Let us know. We've got Jake Crane of Crane & Company coming your way next, right here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate.
Offsides with Mark Ryan.
Only on the Fan Upstate.
It's Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Joined right now by the host of the national show, Crane & Company. He's got an MVP in his corner. His wife, part of the Real Daily Wire. These guys slay it on social media day in and day out. And folks, frankly, the show is must watch. You know, I don't advertise this a lot, but like there's very few new ideas out there. You know, I can't tell you how many times that I've watched Crane and Company and they give me an idea for this show, or like, how can I take an idea that they've used and spin it locally for our audience, right? You know what they say, imitation is the most sincere form of flattery. And he joins us right now on the show, Jake J-Boy Crane on Twitter at @JCrane_. Great to catch up with you as always, my friend. How's life?
It's going great, man. Number one, I appreciate the introduction, brother. I really enjoy you guys' work as well, and it's fun being in a space with people that are free thinkers and actually say what they think, and that's why you're able to argue it to its furthest point. So I really appreciate that, man.
Yeah, not only that, but Jake, you and I probably agree on less than 50% of the topics, but it's one of the rare relationships where that's cool, where that's okay.
Yeah, well, dissent moves us forward. Like, nobody wants. I don't understand people that just want to watch stuff they disagree with the whole time. I mean, not that you want to disagree with everything, but I mean, that's what makes it fun, right? That's the whole point.
Jake Crane joining us. Jake, Dartmouth men's basketball is forming a union. Why, in your opinion, is this ill-fated?
Well, because they don't make any money. This is like putting a lemonade stand next to a Minute Maid factory. You just don't have the juice to compete, dog. I mean, if this was Georgia's football team, and look, who knows where we're going with college athletics, okay. Like, you have a financial ability to say, listen, we can do this. Dartmouth's basketball team. I mean, I think more people show up to a math test at Dartmouth or a protest than the basketball team. So if you're something that doesn't make money, then you want to unionize to have sway over college basketball outside of football that generates revenue. You're just not one of them. I mean, this is like Pugsley calling Sydney Sweeney ugly. It just doesn't make sense, man.
Jake, earlier in the show, I argued that March Madness is so stuffed with middling Power 5 schools that it essentially renders the conference tournaments meaningless. If half of the SEC is already in the March Madness field, what does it matter what happens in the SEC tournament other than making more money for the league? Am I right or am I wrong? Where's the juice in the conference tournament if most of the teams in the conference tournament are already in the national tournament?
Yeah, well, I think you're barking up the right tree. I disagree with you in the fact that I don't think the tournament committee, and we've seen this, if you just want to use the SEC example, I don't think the NCAA tournament committee really has shown a ton of value of having success in these conference tournaments. I mean, Selection Sunday is literally like the day after it ends, or sometimes the day of it ending. So a lot of times they've already made up their minds. Now, there is scenarios where a team may need one more win, or they may need two more quality wins. We saw this with Texas A&M, and they still didn't get in last year. But we've seen it multiple times where that win is huge. It could take you from the next four out to the first four out, from the first four out to actually in the tournament. And then obviously the automatic qualifier, right? You go win it, then you're automatically in. Not only that, if you're a team that's on the fringe, you're hoping there isn't a bid stealer in a smaller conference out there. So while I do think the committee should lean more into what happens at the end of the tournament, even though it runs up against the clock, I think there is a ton of value. I mean, just ask Ole Miss right now. But look, I don't think the tournament should expand, right? But I think the SEC teams that are in deserve to be in. I mean, I think you can make the argument, and not only me, but Seth Greenberg, Jimmy Dykes, a lot of guys have made the argument that the SEC is probably the best conference in college basketball. So I see where you're going. I just feel like there's a different angle to go at it.
Jake Crane, Crane and Company, joining us here on Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Jake, I've heard our friend Josh Pate say that, look, you got a bunch of people that don't love college football, but are just businessmen at the controls of, what we're doing with college football. And he implies it's going to be disastrous. Let me tell you what I have a problem with. Just because you decide to expand doesn't mean you have the right to demand all of these auto bids. And when you foresee what this is going to look like, Jake, 16-team SEC, maybe 3 or 4 auto bids, same with the Big Ten, now 8 and 4 teams because they play in the SEC are making the college football playoff. That's the NFL, Jake. You can make
Yeah.
the NFL playoffs with a record of 10-7 or 11-6. We loved college football because it was the antithesis of that, and everything mattered. And these 16-team conferences with an expanded playoffs and massive amounts of auto bids are forever removing the reality that every week of college football was a playoff game. I hate this.
Well, look, I agree. I don't know why we have, selection committee and rules committee made up of athletic directors and lawyers. I agree with Josh on that front. Now, this isn't the only big money-making thing where the people only care about making money. That's about 99% of the things that make money, and we can argue that in a lot of different realms. Kind of the way I see it, and we had Tim Brando on today, is I agree with you. Having 3 automatic bids for the SEC and the Big Ten, and then 2 automatic for the ACC and the Big 12 if the tournament, or it is a tournament, if the playoff expands to 14 teams. To be honest with you, it's just going to naturally work out like that, pretty much. I don't understand why you have to just, for lack of a better term, piss everybody off by saying, well, you should get this slice of the pie and I should get this slice of the pie. No, it's going to work out like that. I mean, hell, they kept an undefeated ACC team out of the college football playoff last year. You know who's going to be the first one of the animals to get the scraps off the dinner plate. It's going to be the SEC and the Big Ten, and then everybody else will line up behind. So I'm with you. I don't understand, and I really wonder what the publicist or whoever is in charge of the PR for this whole entity was thinking by leaking this out there, number one. And number two, even thinking this would be a good idea. It's going to naturally work itself out that way anyways.
Jake, the SEC is going to get a lot tougher next year with the additions of Oklahoma and Texas, and you can argue whether or not the Big Ten got significantly tougher or not. But in a sport where we judge a good season as 9 wins, a really good season as 10 wins, a great season as 11 or 12 wins, what fan bases are going to have the hardest time dealing with losing more football games? It's just inevitable. Not everybody can go 10-2 or 11-1 or 12-0 on a season. Teams are going to drop more games than they're used to dropping. So in your mind, which fan bases are going to have the toughest time reconciling that?
Well, I mean, the easy answer is Alabama, right? When you look at bringing in a new head coach, replacing the GOAT, what's going to happen the first time it goes wrong? Will they kind of fall back to reality a little bit? Not that they won't be really good, but obviously not go on this dynastical run, even though they haven't won one in the last 3 years. We know how good they've been. I think that's the easy answer. I think Michigan fans are going to have a tough time next year. I'm going to go ahead and tell you that's kind of where I'm leaning right now. With all they've lost, obviously Jim Harbaugh going to the NFL, and look, the Big Ten did get better. I mean, you added an Oregon team that's 13 flavors of piss right now and just got Dylan Gabriel through the transfer portal, and they're pretty good up front. Washington, I think they're going to take a step back. We'll see what Jed's able to do out there, even though I'm a big Jed Fish guy. But I would say Alabama, Michigan would be one. I don't think Georgia is going anywhere. I'm really bullish on Ohio State this next year with what they have coming back and what they've added, obviously, through the portal. The one that I'm sitting here looking at, and it's tough for me to make my mind up, obviously right now we still have the spring portal, is Texas. And look, Oklahoma, they've won a lot of games, but they're kind of going through this process with Brent Venables. So it wouldn't be that big of a surprise if they'd struggle with a new quarterback coming in. There's just a couple things. Number one is that the common misconception with the SEC is that it's some type of one-off. Oh, you just got to beat Alabama. Oh, you just got to beat Georgia. That's not the case. The hardest part about the Southeastern Conference is going through the absolute warpath gauntlet week in and week out. Going to Kentucky is not easy, right? Then you play LSU the next week. Then you got to go to Tennessee. Then you got Auburn. And then, oh, God, here comes Georgia. You're lucky if you get Vanderbilt. Obviously, that's kind of the one academic school we can point at and pretend like we care about books and math and stuff. But now you've added, obviously bringing in those two in the conference. I hope their fan bases, and especially Texas, with all they return, with Quinn Ewers, with a good offensive line, starting to figure it out on defense, they've become a lot tougher. Don't be shocked if you look up and these cats are 8-4, and they got a taste, right? They sipped from the cup last year. They feel like they're back. Sark's got a big new add-on to the contract. I think Texas, Alabama, and Michigan. Those are the 3 big dogs that I'm looking at.
Jake Crane joining us here. Jake, sticking with Alabama and Michigan, both had head coaching openings, both had very, very different strategies in filling those openings. Alabama went balls to the wall, went complete break from culture, went totally outside the box. Michigan went about as safe as you could go. I subscribe far more, Jake, in my life to the risk-taking approach than the safe approach. I've done almost nothing safe in my life. Who, in terms of strategy, who do you side more with, Alabama or Michigan?
Yeah, well, number one, I'm not going skydiving with you. Number two, when you're going to buy a new car, do you test drive it first?
Of course.
Well, then you would love to hire up Sharon Moore. He's got more test drives in big games than anybody. He's the closest thing to a sure bet out there for Michigan. The culture doesn't have to change. The way you operate and the structure of practice and the terminology doesn't have to change. He knows the administration, and he's coached in big games, even though he was the interim. Now, the problem for Coach Moore is that J.J. McCarthy and half of those Siberian cave trolls up front on that offensive line plus Blake Corum are gone. So it's going to be somewhat of a rebuilding process. But, you know, I'd feel a lot better about Sharon Moore just because of we've seen that movie before. You've test-driven the car. With Kalen DeBoer, all he's done is win. And I'm going to give that man his flowers there. But you are replacing the greatest college football coach of all time. Not one of the best, not a guy that really did some good things, you know, and captured our hearts for a little bit. You are literally replacing the Dark Emperor, the one who ran college football and honestly could probably run it from whatever island in Turks and Caicos he's laying on next year. But when I look at Kalen DeBoer, it is a risk. And again, he could go 9-3, and that would be a good year. Who knows? Alabama would probably get in. But if they go lose to Wisconsin early and then Georgia, they're going to be showing up to the mayor of Tuscaloosa's house with pitchforks and torches, man. So I'll take the car that I've test drove.
Jake, here in this state in South Carolina, our audience tells us every single time we ask this question, are you a football state or a basketball state? And we get football every single time. So I pose this question to Gamecock fans who have had a little bit of success in football, not a ton, and a little bit of success in basketball, not a ton. Would you rather have 8 football wins a year or an Elite 8 basketball program every year? And the results of this poll, man, it's going to blow you away. It is damn near 50-50. But if it's your money, if it's your fan base, if it's your school and you're South Carolina, would you rather have an annual 8-win football program or an annual Elite 8 basketball program?
Oh, man, that's a good one. Here's what I'll say. At least if we get to the Elite 8, we got a chance to win the national championship. I know we're expanding the playoff in college football, but at least up to this point, I don't think 8-4 is getting you in. So I would rather roll the dice and say, you know what? Some years we may win 9 games. Hell, we may win 10. Other years we may win 5. But we're going to the Elite 8 every single season. I would take that route because, look, I want national championships. And I'm going to tell you something else. I believe in Shane Beamer, man, still. I know there's a lot of people that are down on him. And I know 8 wins probably feels like a lot right now for South Carolina fans and not a lot for Clemson fans who we know how cyclical football is. But this man's going to pop. And when he pops, you know, I really think South Carolina fans are going to fall in love with this guy. And it's going to kind of mirror, in my opinion, a little bit about what Dabo Swinney did at Clemson. I really believe that still.
Arch Manning made a smart choice not to be in the NCAA football video game, Jake. After all, it's exhausting to be called on so often by people throughout the United States of America. Completely kidding there. This is weak sauce to me, Jake. This is weak sauce. And the reason he gave is even worse. He wants to focus on his play on the field instead of on a screen. So you're not going to be in a video game. Jake, I want to ask you, is this a big deal, little deal, or no deal? But I just don't understand the Manning family decision here.
Yeah, well, it just makes it seem like Arch Manning is definitely the kid who tells the teacher she didn't take up the homework right before the bell rings to end class. It just has those vibes. You know, when this came out, I don't know, have you ever seen the movie Zoolander?
Of course.
The part where they're trying to get the files out of the computer and they don't realize, like, the computer's a machine and you just turn it on. They think you have to smash the computer because the files are in it. It just made me think of that because, like, he realizes, like, he didn't have to go out there and play like in dynasty mode. Like, he's not going to have to wake up 30 minutes earlier to plug into the matrix and go out there and get some reps, for his EA Sports video game. Just look, they're going to download the rosters and just write your name in there anyway. So, like, take your $600. It's just, I don't know, man. This is just such a goody two shoes move, and it's not going to change the effort you had to put into it either way. It's just kind of lame to me.
Yeah, no, me too. Like, it's just, and we, like the Mannings, they do everything together. I like the Mannings. I don't get it. I don't get it at all. Jake, you said that DJ Uiagalelei could win a title at Florida State. Is that the Dairy Queen First Place Award, or what title are we talking about here, Jake?
Well, I said that right now, until he shows a transformation that we haven't seen after 4 years and over, I think almost 1,200 passes, unless he makes some big transformation in his ability to consistently make throws from the pocket, I don't think they're going to win a championship, ACC, or make the playoff. Again, I like the guy. I think he's shown a ton of class, a ton of humility. I'm rooting for him, and I hope he's wrong. But at this point, to me, he's a little bit like Joe Milton without the arm strength. Yeah, sometimes he'll make the throw, but he doesn't make the routine plays routine. There's a saying in baseball, don't give him more than 27 outs. DJU gives him a lot more than 27 outs because he misses open guys, and he hasn't shown the ability to create outside of the pocket or enough as a runner to be able to kind of loosen people up and make the throws even wider. So right now to this point, I actually don't, Mark. And I look around at what Florida State lost. I know they brought in the number 4 transfer portal class, but Johnny Wilson, Keon Coleman, Jaheim Bell, and some of the other guys they had, I know they returned some offensive linemen. That's a ton of production, and it's a lot to ask Malik Benson and Roydell Williams and these guys coming in to be able to recreate that with a quarterback that is not Jordan Travis. So FSU is another fan base. You asked me that question earlier. Until he shows me some sort of transformation, which it's hard to show at this point, I have a hard time believing in him.
Jake, the NCAA is looking at adding communications into one helmet at a time on the field. And there's some other odd rules to it to say that the coach can't communicate within 15 seconds of a play clock going dead. Why are we dipping our toe in to this rule? Why aren't we going full bore? Just put communications in every player's helmet. Why just one guy? From a former coach's perspective, how does it change the game to have one guy with communications versus all 11 guys having communications? Like, what are your thoughts on these changes that are being proposed?
Well, I wonder if every school would have the capability to put a microphone in everybody's helmet. Because if you're going to do that, it's not just like you can trade helmets on the sideline. Like, you're going to have 125 helmets with communications in them. I don't know if every school that plays can afford that. Now, when it comes down to these new rules, and you throw the 2-minute warning they're talking in there, and we've already seen a lot of the rules start to mirror the NFL, I'm not so much worried about the rules per se. I'm more worried about what Mark was talking about earlier in the postseason, just basically turning into the NFL and the whole structure turning into the NFL. I think what the differences in college football and the NFL, those are their strengths, right? I don't want the college football to be a mirror image of the NFL. It's the same sport, but it's a different game. Guys don't have a problem, adjusting to some of the NFL rules. Hell, it's easier for receivers. You can't really even touch them. So I'm more worried about the structural part. The 2-minute warning, I don't mind. I think it'll make for better finishes, to be honest. More commercials, but we're getting that anyway. It's not like you're not going to watch. Stop lying to yourself and everybody else. But I'm more worried about the structural changes mirroring the NFL because I like localism versus corporatism. I don't want it to be the same.
Jake, on that note, what would be the number for you where this is officially broken, where it's jumped the shark? Are we there yet? Is that number 16, 20, 24? What do you say?
Well, my biggest fear, and I think 16 is the number that I don't think would break the whole sport, but it would break the regular season because they backed themselves into a corner because all we've heard for the last going on decade now is player safety, player safety, player safety. Well, if you keep adding teams to the playoff and you keep the amount of regular season games and a conference championship, you're not really going towards player safety. Adding more games does not equate with the argument you make with trying to keep the players safe. So if they're going to cut anything, it's going to be games from the regular season, because they're not cutting the conference championship game, one, because it makes too much money, and two, that's going to secure an automatic bid for somebody under the new rules. So they're going to start cutting games out of the regular season. And to me, that would be one of the most detrimental things that could happen to college football. And then I guarantee you they'll use the excuse of, oh, well, we really started only playing 11 regular season games, so it's not that big of a change. Then all of a sudden it's down to 10 regular season games. That's what worries me the most, because I do think, even though, that's why I wanted the number at 8, because you can go to 8 to 10. Hell, you can go to 8 to 12. And to me, I think once you start getting to 16, that's when you have to start eliminating games from the regular season. And I don't want to see that.
Jake, you mentioned earlier that you had him on. I love this guy as well. Had him on our shows over the years many, many times. Tim Brando, over under, I'm going to guess 2.5 questions that you were able to ask him in a 15-minute format. And I'm going to take the under. How many questions did you get to ask Tim Brando? I love the guy, but he spins a yarn.
Well, look, Timmy B is very thorough in his
answer. Yes, he is.
I enjoy it. I enjoy it because, look, at the end of the day, the guys that I like are the guys that say what they really think. And like I said earlier, say what you really think, but answer more in long form. Now, as far as the over-under, we kept him on for like 35, 40 minutes because we just love his content. And he can talk college hoops. He covers it. He can talk college football. He covers it. And he's seen a lot. He has seen the evolution even further back than we have of college football to what it is now. I'm not trying to call him old, but Tim will tell you that. So at the end of the day, I love it. I grew up, one of the coolest things my dad did for me was he took me to hang around older guys. And I like to listen to them talk and kind of get a different consensus on what's going on from somebody who has more experience than me. So I think we got that over there. But look, I love me some Timmy B, dog. I got to go down and play some golf with him.
His name is Jake Crane from Crane and Company, one of our must-watch, must-see national shows, a lot of college football, and so much more. 7:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. Eastern Time, live, but on demand whenever you'd like it on their YouTube channel, Crane and Company, Real Daily Wire. We love you, pal. Thanks so much.
Hey, love you guys. Huge one tomorrow for South Carolina. I know everybody's jacked and tan about that one. We'll see.
We will soon see. Jake Crane, Crane and Company, Real Daily Wire. Joining us right here. We've got Either Or coming your way next, right here on Offsides. We are the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. today. Guys, what is that number for you where college football would no longer be the same? What if they expand to this number, you think everything that made college football special, unique, would be ruined in terms of a college football playoff number? What's that number for you? Okay. To me, we're already pushing it. We're already pushing it. When you have any games that have a safety net, you're already pushing it. And this really flies in the face of those who are saying, well, Mark, how is more football bad? More of anything is bad. Everything in moderation is good, right? Too much sugar is bad. Yes, too much sex is bad. Too much beer is bad. Too much football is bad. Scarcity increases demand. I think we're kind of already there. To me, when you go above 8 teams in the college football postseason, you are hurting deeply the impact of the regular season. You are affecting that big time. And I think that's a problem. I really think that's a problem. And I think we're already there with 12. I think moving above and beyond that to something like 14, 16 would be catastrophic. Well, Mark, it hasn't been catastrophic to college basketball, you say. Really? Really? It hasn't? Guys, let me tell you something. Okay, here locally, I can talk about Clemson basketball. I can mix in a segment of South Carolina basketball. When I do the shows for CBS, you know how many college basketball segments I've done to date? 0. You know why? Because it gets crickets. You know why it gets crickets? Because all anyone cares about is the tournament. You are a tournament sport. College football has been a regular season sport, which means every game matters, which means your phone is blowing up when Akron is beating Alabama in the third quarter. Okay, that's a little bit too unrealistic. When Akron is beating Wisconsin in the third quarter.
Hey, ULM beat Alabama.
Up. Right. Your phone's blown up because it's a regular season sport. And I think, we're rapidly approaching that number. 12 wasn't enough. Now it's going to be 14, Diesel, where the regular season no longer matters. And what you're going to be left with is March Madness, a sport where all anyone cares about is the college football playoff.
Well, and to Jake's point, my question is, are the conference tournaments now basically meaningless? They're meaningless to the top half of every conference. They are meaningful only to teams who find themselves in that middle of the pack, teams who find themselves on the bubble. The quote unquote worst teams who are going to make the NCAA tournament. Ole Miss is at 7-9 in conference. Yeah, they've won 20 games overall, but they are 2, 4, 6, 8, 9th in the SEC. Great. Let's put on a tournament so that maybe the 9th best team in this conference can get into the NCAA tournament. Let's prop those guys up. Let's give them a chance to prove that they belong in. That's why I say those tournaments are meaningless. Like you go down the list, Tennessee, lock. South Carolina, lock. Alabama, Auburn, Kentucky, Florida, locks to get into the NCAA tournament. So for 6 fan bases right there, it is a meaningless tournament. It doesn't matter whether you win or lose this thing. I mean, it's great because you get a trophy. It's great because you maybe improve your seeding a little bit in the NCAA tournament. But ultimately, for the best 6 teams in the league, it doesn't matter. NCAA conference tournaments are for the middle of the pack teams to maybe prove that they're better than a middle of the pack team of a different conference.
The words of Diesel right there for you. What is that number for you where it's the point of no return for college football? Texter says that number is already at 12. Anything further, bowl games go away and regular season becomes shortened and watered down. Texter says, Mark, speak for yourself. Too much sex is bad. LOL. Texter, there comes a point where parts of you are in danger of falling off. Okay? There comes a point with that.
Well, as a former FCS fan, I can tell you a 16-team playoff was fantastic. But there were no FCS bowl games after that. If you're not in the field of 16, your season is over. And that's what's going to happen to make a 16-team playoff meaningful, is to not water down the regular season. Your season is over if you don't make that tournament.
My friends, that is the conclusion of the first half of Offsides for today. But good news for you, there's another half that's going to be even better than the first that is coming your way next with a top 5 at 5. We are the Fan Upstate. What's good, my friends? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel, and we are The Fan Upstate rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. today. Fantastic to have you guys with us. Truly do appreciate you. Could not do it without you. Rolling on until 7 p.m. today. Here's how you can take part. You can give us a ring at 844-FAN-PHONE on the Renewal by Anderson Fan Phone. That's 844-326-3663. And the text line is there for you at 71307. Just start your text with the word fan, and away you go on the show. My friends, it is time for us to do that jam. We call it the Top 5 at 5. The top 5 biggest sports stories of the day, the top 5 topics we're discussing. Ladies and gentlemen of the Upstates, Offsiders, the Top 5 at 5 starts right now.
And now, the Top 5 at 5.
And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
We just got what may have been the best text of the year, Diesel, and I cannot wait to share it with you when this Top 5 at 5 is over. Hit it.
5.
All right, at number 5 today on the show. What would you say Shane Beamer's approval rating is among Gamecock fans? Here's what I think, because we asked Chris Phillips this question yesterday, and Chris Phillips, SEC Unfiltered, said he puts it at 70%. In other words, 70% of Gamecock fans would say they approve of the job Beamer's doing. 30% would say, no, I don't think he's the guy long term. My belief is if they were forced to answer publicly, 90% would give Shane Beamer a thumbs up. But if they were able to answer anonymously, I think it would be far closer to 50-50. Average 90 and 50, what do you have? Chris Phillips, 70-30 proposition. There you go. There you go. What would you say it is? If you polled all Gamecock fans, what percentage of Gamecock fans would say that Beamer's the guy? I approve of the job he's doing. Give me a number on the text line, 71307. Just start your text with the word fan, and away you go. Next up.
4.
Rich Eisen speaks about a conundrum, a catch-22, that if the Bears aren't careful, they could find themselves immediately in.
The Bears have one intention and one intention only, and that's to draft Caleb Williams, trade Justin Fields. Can't get it out of them directly. But that's the general sense around the entire combine. And I know this might be somewhat of a anticlimactic ending after I put the Cowboys there at number 2. But this thing's done. That's what I'm hearing. It's only a matter of time. Interestingly enough, Breer's reporting that the Bears wanted Caleb in Chicago tomorrow, Tuesday, and he opted for a date after his pro day later this month. So they might have to trade Justin Fields before they even get Caleb in the building.
Wow.
I mean, it's dicey.
Like, Diesel, the more you hear about Caleb Williams, this is a team that is
punk ass.
asking to pay you $40 to $50 million.
Yeah.
They're asking you, can we send a charter jet to you where you literally just have to walk onto the plane and fly here? And he's saying, nah, brah, I'll come to you at a later date. I'll come to you later. Like what kind of vibes are we picking up here about this guy? It's not good. With everything that he does, if I'm the Chicago Bears, I'm running. I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't know there was going to be another red flag in that one. But there is.
Giving me, Kaepernick was supposed to show up at this workout to show off to teams, and then he said, no, I'm going to move it across town at the last minute. He's giving me those kind of vibes.
Yeah. Really, you're really picking it up. So what would you guys do? At this point, I'm backing out on Caleb. Sorry. The choice to me is keep Justin Fields, trade the number 1, or take Jaden Daniels. And I'm leaning strongly towards keeping Fields. Next up.
3.
At number 3 on the show today, we gave you coaching grades for every NFL hire because 25% of the league turned over this year. 25%. From worst to first, Dan Quinn, Washington Commanders, the grade is D. Anti-retread policy is what I have. 7th ranked hire out of 8. Mike McDonald, Seattle Seahawks, C-. They're going for the next Pete Carroll. He's exactly half of Pete Carroll's age, but at 36 years old, is he too green for that position? Number 6, Brian Callahan, Tennessee Titans. By the way, Mike McDonald, grade of C-. Brian Callahan, grade of C. Son of Bill Callahan, former Raiders head coach.
Distant cousin to Tommy Callahan from Callahan Auto, Sandusky, Ohio.
Okay. He's worked. I didn't get something there.
Movie Tommy Boy.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I see what you're saying. Your remembering of movies is something I can't even fathom.
Did you hear that Tommy just sold 500,000 brake pads?
Did you? I don't know, man. Mike McDonald, to me, a little young. Good luck trying to find the next Pete Carroll. Brian Callahan, C. I think if they could go back, they'd bring back Mike Vrabel. I think they realized that was a mistake. Dave Canales is the 5th ranked hire out of 8 hires. Carolina Panthers. I give it a C+. No experience, but a lot of positivity, a lot of enthusiasm. Antonio Pierce is number 4 for me, Las Vegas Raiders. Grade of B-. Went 5-4 as Josh McDaniels' replacement. Very limited experience. I think much is going to determine on the talent they put around him, right? Do they have a good GM there? Number 3, I like the hire New England made with Gerard Mayo. What was special about New England when Bill Belichick was there? Outside of Tom Brady, their defense, right? Tom Brady made them elite on offense. He was effectively the offensive coordinator. And Bill Belichick was the maestro on defense. Well, who knows more about the Belichick defensive approach than Gerard Mayo? Plus, he's more personable, more transparent, able to relate better to younger players. Gerard Mayo, grade of B. Second best hire of the offseason, Raheem Morris. I'm going to go B+. Arthur Blank, Atlanta Falcons, chose Raheem Morris over Bill Belichick. What does that tell you? Raheem has had a couple of other stints as a head coach, but I don't consider him a retread. I consider him somebody who has grown into his role, has grown into being a star, that has a lot of big names, people like Sean McVay of the Los Angeles Rams vouching for him. That goes a long way. Bill Belichick can tell you what he's already done. Raheem Morris can tell you what he's going to do, and he's got a vision. That goes a long way, my friends. And number 1, Jim Harbaugh, grade of A. May not turn around the Chargers overnight, but it might be season 2. And they're going to be off and running, man. Off and running. Justin Herbert has not yet reached his potential. Will be a Pro Bowl quarterback under Jim. Look for the Chargers to be in the playoff every single year, beginning, I think, in 2025. Next up,
2.
At number 2, we've asked you guys the question, are conference tournaments now meaningless games? With a conference like the SEC where 8-9 teams are going to get in, who really cares? Who wins? It's not going to be one of the bottom feeders. I propose, guys, that home court advantage in the NBA Finals go to the winner, the conference that wins the NBA All-Star Game. And people just threw sharp, pointy objects at me, something unmerciful. And I said, well, wait a minute. Baseball did that. And you know what it did? They said it was ruthless. They said it was crazy. But it made me watch the All-Star Game. What is more absurd, baseball or basketball having home field, home court advantage on the line in the All-Star Game, or college basketball determining their automatic bid by who wins a conference tournament, a format that they don't have those teams play the entire season? What's a bigger determining factor in deciding who's the best team in your league? Science tells you that the greater the sample size, the more accurate the results. The regular season champion should be the team that gets your auto bid. Bob Ritchie of Furman has joined the show to tell us this, right? So, to me, guys, that's a problem. It should go to the regular season winner, and you got a lot of conference tournaments that feel, well, relatively meaningless. And finally,
1.
you know, guys, I was looking at Clemson and South Carolina's football schedule today, and we were trying to settle on must-win games. What are the biggest must-win games? Well, for me, first, let's establish what the A through F grades are for both Clemson and South Carolina. We've already determined what the grades will be for different results this season. An A grade for Clemson is a conference championship and making it to the Final Four of the playoff. A B grade is winning the ACC and making it to the college football playoff. Okay? A C grade is not winning the ACC, but making it to the college football playoff and not winning a game. A D grade would be not winning the ACC, not making the college football playoff, but finishing in the top 25. Therefore, the F grade is you didn't make the college football playoff, you didn't win the ACC, and you didn't finish in the top 25. On the South Carolina side, an A grade is 9 wins, including the bowl season. So 8-4 and you win your bowl game, 9-3 and you lose your bowl game. B grade is 8 wins. C grade is 7 wins. D grade is 6 wins. F grade is 5 wins, which would mean you only won 1 game more than the 4 gimmies you have on the schedule in the names of Old Dominion, Akron, Vanderbilt, and Wofford. So what do you say? Must-win game. For me, Clemson, it's Florida State, October 5th. You open with Georgia, that is now a likely loss. You have 3 tricky home games, but you're going to be favored in double digits in all 3. Appalachian State, North Carolina, NC State, and Stanford. If Clemson loses at Florida State and has 2 losses roughly a month into the season again, there's going to be a very here we go again feel to Clemson's season. Furthermore, when I look at this schedule, I see only 1 gimme game. Again, the Gamecocks have 4. The Citadel on November 23rd. Every other game, ball bounces a certain way, could be a loss for Clemson. The must win again, October 5th at Florida State. Agree or disagree? And South Carolina, must win game. To me, there's 3 candidates. Game number 2 at Kentucky, because you have LSU the week after. Game number 5 at Ole Miss, because you have, game number 5 hosting Ole Miss. Okay? In Columbia, because you have at Alabama and at Oklahoma afterward. But I'm going to go with November 2nd, game number 8 of the year, homecoming, A&M at home. Why? Because a loss in this game, ladies and gentlemen, means that you're almost assuredly 3-5 or 2-6. That would also mean that you're not going bowling. You have a bye week before this game after playing Ole Miss, Alabama, and Oklahoma in back-to-back weeks, 2 of those games on the road. A&M has not played to their talent level against every other team they play, not named South Carolina. But yet when they play the Gamecocks, they seem to appear as everyone thinks they're going to be the whole year. Really good. Shane Beamer and company have got to get over the A&M hurdle this year against Mike Elko and company. Can they do it? What are your must-win games for Clemson and South Carolina this season? How do you end up on that as a must-win game for those teams this season? What happens if they win? What happens if they lose? And those are today's top 5 at 5. Now it's your chance to chime in, which you can do. Good call, Texter. Texter says, Mark, watching the stream, why is your fan upstate emblem hung upside down on your microphone? Does that signify a hot take? No, Texter. What it signifies is that it fell off onto my laptop in the middle of the show. But thank you for highlighting that.
When the American flag is upside down, it means there's a big problem.
It does.
Send help immediately.
Yeah, it does. Let's see here. Texter says, Diesel, please teach your boy Who is in a band? By the way, what movies are a requirement to see and memorize? Ricksta from the Berg.
What movies are a requirement to see and memorize? Well, it's whatever movies you like. If you can throw out any random quote in a context that makes sense, by all means, do it. But, as far as radio movies go, my favorite is Airheads. It's 3 idiot rockers break into a radio station to try to get their song played on the air. And then chaos ensues. And the cast is enormous. Every comedic actor that you could think of from the 90s is in it. That's got to be one of my all-time favorite movies, and I will watch it over and over and over again. The problem is, nobody puts those movies on TV anymore. Nobody has TV anymore. So, they don't get played as much.
Texter says, Mark, you have said that same take Diesel is saying about conference championship games in football. Going forward, they become meaningless. Players even may opt out. Yeah, I'm not going to play in the conference championship game, but I'll see you in the playoff. What would you say if Caleb Williams tells you that? He would seem to be a guy that would do that. You can't say no, can you?
What would you say if Armando Bacot and the entire starting 5 at UNC said, nah, we're already a lock to get into the tournament. Why should we play in the conference tournament? Why don't we let the bench play?
We're a 2 seed already. Best we can do is become a 1. Worst we can be is a number 3. Oh, well.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Hope the bench guys do well. Hope they do well.
What's funny is one of these days, someone is going to realize that shrinking the playoffs in these sports makes it better.
Yep.
And they're going to talk about it like it's this brilliant novel idea that no one's ever thought of before. And they'll say, pay me a lot of money, shower me in adulation, because I, the person who is in charge and can affect this change, I have figured out that if we shrink the playoff, everything will matter more.
Diesel, it's never going to happen, unfortunately, because
I know.
Because the money the networks are offering for the expanded playoff. The networks here have the power to save college football by telling college football, we don't want more, we want less. But they're not doing that. They look at the expanded playoff as a way to monopolize the sport. We're going to control all of it. We're going to have the entirety of the playoff under our umbrella. And that sucks, man. That royally, royally blows. Really does. Let's see here. Text of the day. You ready? Having too much sex can cause memory loss. I read it on page 14 in a medical journal on the 7th of May, 2021 at 3:19 p.m. In other words, the 40-year-old virgin scores more. That was money, Texter. That was money. You're like butter because you're on a roll, Texter. And I appreciate you. I appreciate you indeed. All right, my friends. Coming up next, it's the NBA's problem, but this is not an NBA segment. It's one you'll actually be interested in. And it's next, right here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate.
JD, Madcraft, everybody a part of the stream today. Those of you still watching, thank you so much. You are out tomorrow. The stream will be back on Thursday.
We'll see you guys then. Have a great one, guys. Thank you.